is Division's endgame kind of a mess right now? This is based on a Forbes article where they argue that, yeah, it's totally messy right now and not what they envisioned. What do you think?
Day one, I was like, there's a very defined progression here. And they really tell you what to do when that screen pops up. And I was like, I feel pretty good about this. You know, it's like, do your hard mission, do your challenge mission, go into the dark zone. And now having 3 or 4 days under my belt, yeah, that article hits the nail on the head in almost all respects. I'm not really too concerned about that whole, a lot of people got Phoenix credits early due to some kind of exploit or misbalancing. That doesn't really irk me because I think the Phoenix credit progression right now is okay.
Yeah,
I think
it's what it should be.
Sure.
Initially, there was a way to just get like 14 a pop or so. You know?
Yeah, like each.
It was super easy to get them, so a bunch of people like maxed out super fast, and they're like, "Whoops, patched."
So there's two ways to do it: hard missions and challenge mode missions, and those award about. I believe at the time they awarded about 10 Phoenix credits. But named bosses would drop anywhere from 10 to 15 Phoenix credits. So just doing a loop in the dark zone of named bosses. A lot of people hit the invisible cap wall of 1,000 Phoenix credits, and at that point you have an entire set of high-end gear.
You're done. You beat the game.
You beat the division.
Absolutely.
You beat the division in 2 days. And so, like you, I'm not really concerned with it because A, I don't care if other players get there first, and B, PvP is a non-starter right now. Like it's
really
just there's no reason to attack other players in the dark zone outside of griefing or just kind of being an a-hole.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, and you know those people like haters are gonna hate, right? Like and those people are gonna do that anyway. But like Duggan was saying, you know, there at level 30 in the dark zone, you die as a rogue or oh God, worse as a manhunt. You could lose, you know, upwards of 40,000 experience. Like
Which
that's
translates to time.
hours of work. Like when a game mechanic forces you to lose 3 hours of the game,
Needs to be tweaked.
working as intended. Let me preface that a game mechanic that's working as intended forces you to lose hours of the game for a reward that is, you know, exponentially smaller than the risk. I think that is a problem, and I think right now going rogue in the dark zone, and you know, because the dark zone is all about going rogue and surviving in there with this tension with other players, because that kernel of going rogue is broken. I think the dark zone is broken right now. Right now, it's just a high-level PvE grinding area.
I feel like such a hipster for saying this, but my God, was it fun in the closed beta. That was before some rebalancing happened, and basically they had. Mobs gave you almost nothing in terms of your experience and funds, and players gave you everything. And dying as a player was significant even if you weren't a rogue. And that established the Dark Zone as this, like, it felt like the Dark Zone. It felt terrifying to be in there. It felt dangerous. It was akin to DayZ, it was akin to Rust, but it was a little bit more organized than that, and it wasn't as brutal when you died. But that was like the intended environment for it. And now the way that they've balanced it is a, like you said before, like you're losing hours, and that's, you know, not great. But especially when those 4 hours of gameplay are 4 hours of monotonous grinding mobs. It's not 4 hours of good, fun, emergent PvP gameplay you've lost. It's 4 hours of just like, man, why am I even continuing to do this?
And if you get killed, you still lose that, right?
Yeah.
It's the same scenario.
If
So if somebody goes rogue on you,
You lose
well,
less.
no, you
lose
lose,
less.
you lose
Okay.
significantly less.
Going rogue is just dying as a rogue. There's a big penalty tax put on it,
Got it.
right?
Sure.
But if you die, you still lose some experience and some
But not
currency,
nearly
but
as
not
much.
nearly as bad. Which
Got
is
it.
why there's no incentive to going rogue. Which is why the whole point of the dark zone is sort of moot.
I have to give a shout out to the clip of that one player though that saw 11 people literally in
man.
a circle.
That was amazing.
He actually let us use the clip for the show today, and it's on IGN. You can check it out.
This is great.
He throws a grenade and then he pops his power and kills all 11 of them.
Yeah.
And then he like extract. But they got their revenge. He goes
They did.
around a corner. He sees literally all of them coming back. He's like, "Oh God!" And he tried to get away, but ended up dying. But it's just such a fantastic clip. Do you guys feel that temptation to ever go rogue when those opportunities arise?
I mean, that's like akin to like being a teenager and being like,
Yeah.
you know, it's like midnight right now. I'm on an empty highway, and then when you become an adult, you're like, I have too much responsibility to do something that stupid because. And it should be fun. That should be incentivized. If you see all those people there, that should absolutely be.
it should be a temptation.
It should be like, especially when they're all so clustered together, there should be no deterrent from having you do that, because it would be such a boon, and all those people were so clumped together, and it was such a big no-no for them in terms of that kind of PvP dangerous game, that like we should all feel tempted to do that. But honestly, if I did that, that's just me throwing the past like day of me grinding the Dark Zone, which isn't that fun, by the way, out the window.
I was thinking about this. I was thinking, what scenario would I be in where I would feel comfortable going rogue? And I think the only scenario right now was if there was one person and he had just looted a named boss. Like if it was just me and another neutral agent, we just killed a boss together. I went and looted, he went and looted. I would consider killing him and taking his loot because it's just one person. So going rogue, level 1, is not going to be as bad for me.
It's only like 60 seconds or 80 seconds.
Yeah,
or
so I could probably run for 60 seconds and then lose rogue status.
Especially if you
But
haven't
rank
seen a lot
5,
of
it's
players.
5 minutes.
Yeah, there's no
You're dead.
There's no
Yeah.
reason to attack more than one player ever. Like it's just the risk, the reward is not there. But if I see a guy, I know he's got decent gear because he just killed a boss. It's only one guy. I could probably get away. I think that's the only scenario in which I would feel comfortable going rogue right now.
I completely echo that sentiment, but that being said, after spending a couple hours in the Dark Zone, purple gear just isn't interesting anymore.
Yeah.
it's all
high-end.
about grinding the high-end
Once you
gear.
get that taste.
You very quickly, you immediately, as soon as you hit 30, completely out-level blues, and then you very quickly, there's level 31 items, which are like a little bit better in terms of their base stat rolls, but as soon as you get a couple of those and get a couple high-ends under your belt, the gear that the bosses drop, and you find, especially the ones you find in chests in the Dark Zone, is just not interesting to you. It only serves as a like very marginal upgrade, so that incentive is not there for me to kill that player, even if I knew he had like 2 or 3 purples on him, because honestly, like effectively, that's not going to change anything on my paper doll. So
Sure.
So overall take, guys, end game, do you like it? Yes or no? Brandon?
No.
No. Okay.
Yeah, I have to agree right now. It's a no for me. That being said, I could totally see the potential, and I feel like a lot of this comes from having spent so much time in the Dark Zone and closed beta. It was a totally different burn back then, and maybe it was just because the player psychology was different back then, because it was a limited run. But I feel like there's a sweet spot for the Dark Zone, and I see the potential because that is, hopefully at its core, potentially an infinitely replayable, emergent zone where that kind of like buffers the time difference. In Destiny, you don't really have that, right? You have content coming 1 or 2 months down the line in terms of a new incursion or what have you. The Dark Zone can help fill that time and keep the player base active for that span of no content, because it's, you know, you're never going to have the same experience if it's balanced properly.
Sure, but in a game where the end game is all about progression, about getting better gear, there's no reason to do that in the Dark Zone.
Sure, as it stands now. I think it needs tuning, but I think they have an idea there. I'm very, very, extremely cautiously optimistic that with some patches, with incursions down the line, there could be an end game that makes sense, but right now, absolutely not.
And don't get me wrong, I don't dislike the act of playing the end game. I find it just right, like literally 45 minutes ago, I crafted a high-end marksman rifle, and I can't wait to go use that, right?
Yeah.
I enjoy the act of playing the end game. I just don't like the structure of it. I'm still engaged by it. I'm still engaged of getting the new gear and leveling up and turning myself into this min-max monster. But the actual act of knowing this is all that is going to be there without the Dark Zone, without the incursions until April, I think, it's frustrating.
Yeah, definitely.